News. The Standard this morning is leading with news on the BBI as well as the Daily Nation. The Business Today, of course, is handling matters business in the country, and there's so much more lined up for you. What else do we have this morning?
Good morning, Trix. I hope you're well. My name is Jesse Rogers. Many thanks to our viewers for joining us this early. Of course, we're here to bring you up to speed with the latest developments. As she hinted, we'll have robust discussions, some of them centered on the youthful population in the country, setting unrealistic goals and the pressure to achieve them. We'll have a conversation with various school heads who work directly with this young individual, and perhaps what can be done to actually clear their vision and make these dreams more achievable. Not just that, we'll have a sit down with the acting county secretary in the county of Nairobi, just interrogating various developments that are happening within the NMS and their working relationship, as well with the workers union and the NCCG, that's the county workers as well. This and much more coming up, so do stay tuned to Morning Express.
Yes, stand by for all that and more. And to kick us off, let's take a look at what's making headlines on the international scene. And we start off in neighboring Uganda as usual. We'll take a look at the Daily Monitor. Now, the Daily Monitor is, of course, it brings us the latest in news from Uganda, and of course we shall be looking at that. I'm sure it's open somewhere, but let's take a look at the Citizen. 9 issues that analysts expect in Samia's first address to Parliament. Now, here are the details. We are told with President Samia Suluhu Hassan scheduled to make her maiden address to Parliament tomorrow, pundits expect she will touch on at least 9 issues that they need pressing on. Of course, we shall be keeping you updated on that, but there's more. We're told about Prime Minister Majaliwa exposing rot dogging Dar bus rabbit transit. Take a look at that and find out more about how transportation in that country is being dogged by some rather rot, as they term it. World Bank, do scroll back up. World Bank to finance Tanzania's project valued at 2.6 trillion shillings. Of course, she is hitting the ground running. That is Samia Suluhu telling us more about what this is going to tell us more about the project, some of which former President John Pombe Magufuli started. And of course, the World Bank is chipping in to help them actually go along with that. But all those projects are being valued at 2.6 trillion Tanzanian shillings, which is a lot. And then Zanzibar receives U.S. equipment to curb COVID-19. Now, of course, we have a lot of controversies surrounding COVID-19, and when it comes to this, obviously, with this help, it is an indication that the number might not be the 509 that they keep posting right there. It might be higher, and therefore the need to have the U.S. chipping in to help them curb COVID-19. Now, and remember, Zanzibar is a semi-autonomous part of Tanzania. Let's take a look at that Daily Monitor, the next paper right there, and see what's making headlines in Uganda. And the top story this morning is Rango stall government plan to take over city markets. Trades at St. Balikudembe, Owino, Kiseka and Nakasero markets are demanding compensation before government can take over the facilities. Rightly so, and they're pictured there, some of the market women that do their business and trade their wares right there in that market. And Uganda ranked the worst in rule of law and injustice. Take a look at that and find out why Uganda is doing poorly in terms of the law. Then we have an overview of the infections of coronavirus infections rather in the region. Tanzania is at 509, Kenya is at 153,488,000. Then we have Uganda at 41,475. Rwanda is sitting at 24,005, and of course Rwanda on the lesser side because obviously it's a smaller nation in the East African region. Then they're telling us more about WHO eyeing malaria eradication in 25 countries by 2025. An ambitious goal, hopefully that shall be attained. Then we have case against pipeline project delayed. Moscow ordered 10 U.S. diplomats to leave Russia by May 21st. Find out why on the World News. That's what they're leading with. Also, they're telling us about UN Security Council rejecting Farmajo's extension of the presidential term. We do know that he extended his presidential term with support of some legislators by 2 years, and of course this has caused controversy. And they have gone out of their way to say they will not be welcoming outside interference, and of course that would include the UN Security Council's take on that. Then we're told about Uganda maintaining poor press freedom ranking. Of course, we've seen all the shenanigans that have surrounded that, particularly when the election season is on. Uganda has not been on the forefront of free press and of course fresh press freedom. Find out more about that. And DRC ex-minister held in Brazzaville over embezzlement case. Far from that, we're told about Centenary Bank losing 3 billion shillings in internal fraud, and detectives are questioning top and junior Centenary Bank staff over these losses. They're saying that they're accused of selling forex at lower rates and pocketing the difference for themselves. Let's take a look at the Rwanda today and see what's making headlines this morning. We have new teachers in Rwanda they live hand to mouth as salaries are being delayed. Now, right there you can see pictured students and a teacher. The affected teachers said they have received only 1 month payment since they started working in January. That can't be good. And of course, the tally of the coronavirus infections in the country. Then we're told Rwanda report says France bears significant responsibility over the genocide, and this has been running a running headline for a while now. This is about that time where Rwanda actually commemorates that genocide, and they try to remember some of the problems they faced, and of course in view of it never happening again. But at the same time, they ramp up efforts to bring to book those who have been deemed culpable of aiding this situation. And accusations, of course, between Rwanda and France have been going on for years now. France has maintained that it had nothing to do with the situation, the genocide, but of course Rwanda maintains that there was significant responsibility. Then Juba is going to be disposing 60,000 expired COVID vaccines. This has been making headlines for a while now. It still was a top story yesterday, and of course it's unfortunate because vaccines are vital right now in the fight against coronavirus. Residents evacuate as firefighters battle wildfires in Cape Town. Someone was arrested in line with this, and it's probably arson, given that there is a suspect. And then Cuba gets a new leader as Las Castro retires. Let's take a look at the next paper, the East African, see what's making headlines this morning. We're told on the East African, we're told about criticism growing against Farmajo's extension of term. That time we're talking about the 2-year term. UN Security Council have voiced their disagreement with that move. Then in the rest of Africa, Chad's president died at 68. He died at the forefront fighting rebels. We have ICJ hears Congo-Uganda reparation appeal case. Juba to dispose 60,000 COVID vaccine. Of course, that is news that is making tongues wag because of what a loss that is to an African nation. Then case against pipeline project delays in Arusha. Last but not least, let's take a look at the CNN this day and see what they're covering on their world events page. India's second COVID wave hits like a tsunami as hospitals buckle under the weight. Of course, resources are being stretched to their limits, and of course we have had nations, the UK putting India also on its red list. Apparently this has been spreading like a wildfire. Now, Queen thanks well wishes as she spends her first birthday without the prince. She actually came out and said it was touching as people continue to send messages of condolences and goodwill on her birthday. And of course, this is the first since her marriage that she's spending alone. Then French Prime Minister is mailed underwear as lingerie stores protest lockdown. Interesting one. Grab you know, get on that site and find out more about that. Then see Moments child is saved from oncoming train. Then they have segments of Europe, Middle East and Africa, just giving us various stories from various parts of the world. Take a look at the CNN and find out more for yourself. But closer to home, we have I have the Standard and the Nation before me this morning, and I'm told here, and we're told it's all about the BBI. That's the biggest story of the day. On the front page of the Standard, we're told new BBI bombshell. Fresh landmines threaten the BBI process with new revelations that 13 county assemblies approved the wrong bill, and that there are discrepancies between the Senate and the National Assembly bills. Now the promoters are reading sabotage and want the DCI to investigate. Now, further, there's more details on page 5, and on the Daily Nation, we're told outrage over fake BBI bill. Counties received 2 versions of the Constitution of Kenya Amendment Bill 2020. The one sent to most of the devolved units had errors that could now expose the referendum push to fresh legal hurdles, because obviously they were putting a green light to the wrong document. Now the question here is, was it sabotage, and who is to blame? We're told more about new constituencies, nomination of MPs and governance are some of the key areas in focus, and there's more. But joining me, and we do expect Slayman Bashir to join us in a moment. He is a lawyer, but with me here in studio is Kariuki Ngunjiri, who's a political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Trix, for yet another time to deliberate on issues of country.
Yes. Yep. And let's just start off, speaking of issues of national interest, the BBI, the new bombshell. Is this something that you would see as just another error, or do you actually read this as sabotage?
Wow, you know, this is Kenya, and I see this as raw power game, which in normal circumstances you would expect, perhaps when there are malice in such a process, then there will be mistrust amongst parties that are involved in it.
Yes.
This is what I think Max Weber would describe as the state and its actors being untrustworthy to each other. And I believe that this time round, this power game is coming to play out in the very open and poking holes.
In what way would this favor the state?
You see, I'm not entirely saying that this would favor the state. I'm just saying that sometimes of how power is distributed and how power works, sometimes you might find some of these antics within anywhere that the state is involved. But because we don't have any evidence that perhaps those that were distributing these BBI bills to the county assemblies in any way understood what was happening, as at now, we can only assume it is some hidden hands within the same ecosystem of the BBI. And it is funny because, you know, we have seen a lot of hype in the BBI bill, both sides. That is the President Kenyatta side and Raila Odinga side being very passionate about it. So now when we hear such revelations, you wonder what has been happening.
Right.
And that is why most people are laughing, because this is funny. 13 county assemblies discussing the wrong bill.
Yeah, and I mean, given the passion that you have just mentioned, don't you think so there would be more care given to what kind of document is sent to these counties, and therefore that actually points to that suspicion of sabotage?
You see, in politics, we normally say that if you see something happening, it doesn't happen by accident. Somehow, it must have been planned. I don't know what kind of antics, but because it is difficult to know what happened, we can only create scenarios. So scenario one is, if at all, it is going to be unveiled that perhaps one side was the one that participated in this BBI bill, we would call it now scandal, then there would be a level of mistrust that will be built upon BBI politics. So the next thing will be camps, trading wars, because we have heard of the horse trading that has been happening in the National Assembly, and the Senate not having the same bill. And yet, we also had some circles within the president's side saying they would perhaps not prefer a process that goes to the people in a referendum, and that the process should end up in the Parliament of Kenya. So this could also speak to some of the things that we are seeing. And then, if particularly the process as we know it was passed by less than, now including the number of counties that are or have experienced the wrong bill, then that could say perhaps we could be going back to the same circus if 13 were wrong. That 47 minus 13, that would give you about 30 something, and yet not all counties discussed this bill.
Yeah.
So this is also a question that arises in the same process.
And in light of those suspicions, Paul Mwangi, BBI Task Force Joint Secretary, has said the DCI should jump in and unravel what happened between IEBC, assembly debates and communication to Parliament. Someone was involved in criminality and they should be outed, is what he is calling for. And Slayman Bashir, thank you for joining us. Slayman Bashir is a lawyer and a regular here on this show. Now, they're talking about possible legal hurdles. As a lawyer, what do you foresee if it is actually proven that there was criminal mischief here?
Thank you, Trix, for having me. I think first thing first, what we need to understand is any promoter of an amendment to the Constitution, what are the procedures he or she can adopt? First thing first, you come up with a proposal to amend the Constitution. You attain the 1 million signature threshold. When you do that, what happens next? You submit your amendment or the proposal, be it in a form of a suggestion or a question, to the IEBC. It is from there that the IEBC takes it up. So I think, Trix, if at all any mistakes that have happened, they might have happened between the following scenarios. Either the promoters have submitted the wrong copies to the IEBC, in the sense that if you submit, let's say, 500 copies for 47 counties, for instance, or 47 copies for the 47 county assemblies, in the event there are discrepancies, I think as a promoter, you are the one who might have submitted the wrong document. That might be a scenario. The second scenario is, as a promoter, once in the event that you have submitted the rightful copy, I think now the ball lies with the court of the IEBC. What happened? It is the IEBC that, under Article 257, that submits the proposal to all the county assemblies. So I think, Trix, what we haven't yet figured out is where the mixture or where the mistake has happened. Is it on the part of the promoters? Is it with respect to the copies that were submitted to the IEBC? Because I think there were issues surrounding that. IEBC was alleging that they had received not more than one copy. So maybe the discrepancies was there, or maybe the discrepancies were at the level of the county assemblies. You know what? IEBC submits the amendment, the proposal to amend the Constitution to the speakers and the clerks of the county assemblies.
Yes.
That circulation happens to all the county assemblies. It is for the county assemblies to debate thereafter. So I think, Trix, whatever the county assembly members debate is what they had been submitted to them. So I think the mistake might be on the part of either the promoters' process or at the process of IEBC. But I think, Trix, what we need to underscore is, as a promoter, at all times, you have an obligation to make sure that what the members of the county assemblies are discussing is the rightful copy. It is your proposal after all. So at all times, make sure, as a promoter of that initiative to amend the Constitution, that what goes through the county assemblies, what the county assemblies are amending, is your own copy. How do you do this? Because you have members on those county assemblies. You have people you expect their support. And I think we have seen our unwavering support that was given to the BBI bill on the county assemblies. Does it mean the promoters could not find members in those county assemblies, just to confirm for all intent and purposes that that is the rightful copy that they were indeed debating? But I think this is a very embarrassing scenario whereby this kind of an initiative that has attracted such an avalanche of maybe criticism or appreciation to have maybe suffered such a setback. In the event the wrongful copies had been discussed at the county assemblies, we go back to square one. I think that is what will happen. Because right now, issues of time frame will be there.
Exactly,
issues of the threshold of the 24 counties out of the 47 counties, whatever they are discussed, I think it is a big time process. But lo and behold, I think this will be a big setback to the initiative in the event whatever we are hearing will be a reality.
Mr. Ngunjiri, you're tickled by the issue of time. It's quite.
You see,
yeah.
Let's be pragmatic, and if we can still understand how these power issues goes on, and this is not a mistake from where I sit. I know that perhaps both sides, that is the cream of the leadership within the promoters, like my colleague said, would have wished otherwise, and especially because as leaders, they owe the Kenyan people the responsibility of taking this process up to the last minute. But then, I also wonder how it happened that not 1, 2, 3, but 13 county assemblies got the wrong bill. This is going to be an implication and will poke holes to the handshake, which I believe at the moment, because the president is away in the DRC, once he comes back, I think he's going to ask very difficult questions to those that were supposed to be handling these matters. And yet, this is redeemable because we have already seen the Joint Secretary, Paul Mwangi, now accusing part of those that were handling these issues. Because if he speaks, then it means that it is not his camp that has done whatever has happened. So this one now indicts the other side of the political divide.
Yes. Okay.
So were it going to be a process that does not go to the people, I predicted that the referendum could not be the end of this because of even the delays that we have been able to see already. We are talking of the gazettement of the IEBC commissioners having happened late. We are also talking about issues of budget. We are also talking about the BBI tone going down. And some few weeks ago, you already saw the issues of closing the BBI secretariat. There is more than meets the eye.
Okay. Bashir, would you like to add to this one before we move on?
I think, Trix, there's the political aspect and there's the legal question. In the event, the National Assembly and the Senate, whatever they're having on the table, because we have been following the news, in the event there are discrepancies, those might be errors at this stage that can be corrected maybe, because those two houses are yet to pass the bill. But we are talking about assemblies that have passed the bill. We shall ask ourselves, will these have a serious implication on the threshold question, number one?
You see, Trix, this is an issue of the National Assembly, as usual, being the most egocentric of all the houses of parliament.
Yes.
Because they think that they cannot be rubber stamps in this process. And they call themselves, although not the higher house, the Senate is predominantly in culture of politics, the higher house, the National Assembly. You remember even in the Division on Revenue Bill, when they brought this circus of back and forth. So this time, they think that something that has been debated by the county assembly could not be as streamlined to the stature of the National Assembly now coming to rubber stamp the process. So I don't think that the National Assembly has any authority to change anything. Perhaps they could be given the discretion of dealing with some issues of, for example, errors, grammatical typos or whatever, but not to alter the bill and only discuss it as it was taken from the county assemblies.
Okay, and I'm hoping we can swiftly move from that one, because now, as it is, we shall await to see what those investigations yield. Then, as Bashir said, see where the ball was dropped, and therefore, then it will be clear who will be held culpable and whether it is mischief, politics, or just some carelessness. Now, but moving on, the biggest story this week has to do with the CJ. Yes, now of course, we shall have a story that shall help us get into it, and we're told on the front page of the Standard, court deals blow to CJ judges recruitment. This is one that actually now overshadowed even what was expected to have been the biggest story of the day, which was the vacating of Justice Ouko. Court of Appeal president admits hesitation his station due to, rather, Ouko blames case backlog on failure to hire judges as High Court stops interview. Let's take a look at this story and see, before we get into it, the turn of appellate judge and president of the court, William Ouko, will defend his, or rather, defended his sustainability for the Chief Justice position. Senior reporter Murimi Mwangi tells us more on what transpired yesterday during his interview.
Boasting 34 years of legal experience, climaxed by his election as the appellate court president against the wishes of the state, Justice William Ouko was the 8th candidate to defend his suitability for the Chief Justice job.
When I was elected by my colleagues, I was not the senior most. In a list of 20, I was number 13 in terms of seniority. In terms of age, perhaps the same number. And so they saw something in me.
But the interview rekindled memories of the attempted 1982 coup and events leading to the downfall of former spy master Mwangi Mureithi, as the Judicial Service Commission put Ouko to task over a 2014 verdict in which he, together with 2 other appellate court colleagues, ruled in favor of retired President the late Daniel Arap Moi, and overturned an award of over 130 million shillings that the High Court had granted Mureithi for unlawful detention and torture.
This guy who has gone through all this suffering, the detention, and you can remember during those early days when these drastic laws were being applied against Kenyans, and then not only is his judgment set aside, which of course you have a right to set it aside, for good reason, but even also condemning him to pay costs.
In that case, why was the AG not sued? And then we were also wondering, in the law, the president at the time, I do not think, if I recall well, had personal powers to do what he was being accused of doing.
Yet with the slow pace of judicial wheels intensely choking the discharge of justice across the hierarchy of Kenyan courts, Ouko cited the swift reduction of the appellate court's backlog of cases from over 7,000 to just over 1,000 in less than 5 years as proof of his competence for the judicial top job.
The Court of Appeal, under my leadership, is regarded as one of those courts that are most collegiate, where judges work together. There's chemistry in the way we work.
What prepares my Lord for multitasking, and which role my Lord considers as the most important of the many hats my Lord would wear as my Lord Chief Justice?
The first one would be on access. Access in its very broad term. Opening up courts, making work efficient, delivery on time.
Exit Ouko, enter law scholar Professor Wekesa Moni as the JSC edges closer to completion of the physical interviews with only 2 more candidates to go. Murimi Mwangi, KTN News in Nairobi.
Thank you, Murimi, for that piece. But then a spanner was thrown into the works. The High Court stopped the process of vetting new CJ and SC judge. The search for the new Chief Justice, according to the Standard on page 6 this morning, has been thrown into uncertainty after the High Court stopped the Judicial Service Commission from evaluating the candidates after the interviews end tomorrow. Mr. Slayman Bashir, what do you make of this, and what does this mean for the whole process?
Tricks, whenever we have the courts of law giving directions, we normally say in law that such directions are not given in vacuum. Courts consider very critical issues that are brought before them. In the present scenario, Justice Onkwani, I think what the learned judge had realized is that there were serious tribal issues that were coming up. So to save the situation, the interim orders, certain conservatory orders had been given to bar the JSC from considering the outcome, from considering the applications. So I think this is what we need to appreciate. The JSC has not been frustrated in the sense that the JSC shall complete the interview process that shall end with today's candidate and tomorrow's candidate. Once this ends, now the JSC is barred from considering those candidates. Considering means who shall be forwarded to the president maybe for nomination, who they shall nominate, and who shall be forwarded to the president maybe for forwarding to the National Assembly for approval. So I think, Trix, what we are seeing is there were 3 critical petitions that were forwarded to the High Court, which the High Court has considered in its own view and realized that there are some serious tribal issues that are raised. Okay. What will happen is let the JSC finish the interviews, but let the JSC not determine who shall be fit for the position of the Chief Justice. This is because the questions that were raised at the High Court level questions the qualifications and the suitability of some of the commissioners. In the case of maybe Professor Odin Mugenda, the part of the petition states, or questions her suitability to chair the panel. So I think these are the various questions that the court has considered, and now the ball is in the court of the DCJ to constitute a three-judge bench to immediately and very fast deal with this situation. In the event maybe the petitions are dismissed, the JSC shall be allowed to proceed with the determination of who shall be suitable for the position of the Chief Justice. Another thing that I think I've realized the Kenyans were a bit confusing is there were two set of interviews that were supposed to take place. Filling the position of the Chief Justice and another set of interview that was set for filling the position of a Supreme Court judge. What has been stopped, what shall not take place is the interview for the Supreme Court judge position. The interviews that are ongoing for the position of the Chief Justice shall be completed as required. It is only the determination as to who shall be suitable for this position that is what has been halted for now. And I think halting is a temporary issue. You know, conservative orders come in to save the situation where the grave constitutional rights that are issued as the court determines this. And I think the way forward and the way to expedite this is on the part of acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu to very fast constitute that three-judge bench to immediately deal with this situation.
Okay. And is there a scenario whereby we would have all that we have seen in the past 2 weeks rendered moot?
I think there shall be nothing right now we can predict. This is a court case. It's alive in court, and matters that are now proceeding in the court in terms of considering the merit and the demerit is what we should leave to the court. But for now, the JSC, I am very certain, being a very critical judicial organ or judicial commission, it shall abide by the directions of the High Court and see to it that only the interviews for the CJ position are completed as we await the outcome of the court process.
Okay. Mr. Ngujiri, the High Court judges said we are considering the submissions, and as of now, there are 3 petitions challenging the ongoing process of the Chief Justice. And, of course, we've heard that they'll be putting a hold on the evaluation of those candidates after the interviews are over tomorrow. What do you say about this one?
Well, I think Kenya is a different country, and these processes are entirely political. You see, I don't believe
you seem to have a very deep belief in the politics seeping into everything.
Yes, because politics drives everything. And like we said last week here, the Montesquieu doctrine of separation of powers, which would naturally assume that the executive and the judiciary are independent of each other, that the judiciary can be able to make its own determinations. However, you understand that every time these judges always will go through the pen of the president when they are being given the job. So naturally, they feel that the appointing authority is, of course, the president. So if the president and the executive is determined to have a chief justice within these timelines, it doesn't matter what or whatever injunctions will be brought before that process. It has to happen. Like I told you, the state has a monopoly of everything. There is nothing that the executive would want done at this particular moment within the circles of power and within the 3 arms of government that if they can't get it done. So I don't believe that this, or rather this injunction that has been brought forward will stop the ongoing process, or rather will stop the president from considering the names that will be forwarded to him by the Judicial Service Commission and the panelist that is doing the interviews. I believe it's just a matter of when and not if it will happen. So Kenyans should brace for this and be waiting for their next Chief Justice. So this is just a matter
Mr.
of...
Mr. Bashir, do you believe that the judiciary is entirely hopeless against the whims of the executive as far as this appointment is concerned?
We have the 2010 Constitution.
Yes.
That's a shift away from the 1961 one. I think as a country and as a people, when we have a certain beliefs and political maybe assumptions, that may contribute to shrinking our democratic space. According to the 2010 Constitution, we have appreciated a certain level of independence and interdependence of the arms of government. You know, initially, pre-2010 Constitution, the president had the monopoly of picking who shall be the Chief Justice of this republic. Right now, what each and every Kenyan should be celebrating is that we have certain very important organ called, arm called the Judicial Service Commission that is in charge of these interviews, that shall pick maybe 2-3 names which shall be forwarded to the president, which the president, in the event he picks a candidate, shall be forwarded to the National Assembly for approval. I think it has put in very critical checks which we need to appreciate under our Constitution.
Okay.
And I think, Trix, if I may say this,
yes.
What our Lordship, Justice William Oko yesterday, the kind of example he gave is, our arms of government are like an African tool. If you cut one leg, you may not be able to survive on the remaining two. I think we need to appreciate that all the 3 arms of government are very critical for our survival. I think we need to appreciate equally their interdependence and independence is a very crucial issue. So I think right now to cast aspersions on maybe the trust that we have on the judiciary will be laid back. I think we should be shunning from. But as a practitioner and as an advocate, I can assure you, the only arm of government that the people of Kenya have recourse to these days is the judiciary. It is the judiciary that the other day has cancelled or that has illegalized or unconstitutionalized the positions of the Chief Administrative Secretary. That shows you the independence that the judiciary is having, if it can come in maybe to quash or declare illegal certain appointments that were done by the executive. I think this is the time we need to show our spiritual support to a very important arm of this government that has been strengthened under our 2010 Constitution.
Mr. Ngunjiri, yes.
Just let me disagree with my colleague, because I would be very naive to accept and believe that in such a setting, for example, in the Kenyan governance ecosystem, that because the executive would naturally be the body that is over all these other 2 arms of government, and the question of who will appoint the Speaker of the National Assembly now coming in question, because of course in the Kenyan scenario, he will probably come from the party that has majority members of parliament, which is essentially Jubilee. So if the executive wants to pass something in the National Assembly, maybe it's just a phone call, technicalities, do this and this and this. So if I have an understanding of how power is distributed and how power plays out, then I will appreciate that for certain matters, and this does not take away the fact that the judiciary could have freedom and rights to exercise its mandate on issues that do not affect the governing of the countries and which do not attract a higher interest and state interest, such as the appointment of the Chief Justice, then in this case, you would expect that if, for example, we have a judiciary that is putting hurdles to a process that the executive, which is the sole body that is mandated to exercise the governance of this country, then they have to, or rather in a natural political ecosystem, that has to be fixed. So it is just natural and normal political process. Let us not be overzealous on the judiciary and some of the powers that it exercises, up to an extent of assuming that it can be above the executive.
All right, and this is one of those topics that we wouldn't have an end to if we would go on giving our arguments on. But there's another element that we're going to look at: will judiciary insider reform justice? That is the Court of Appeal President William Ouko. His interview happened yesterday. We shall be digging deeper into that. He talked about case backlogs and, of course, there's so much, the failure to hire judges as High Court stops interviews, of course, that we have already talked about. Then we shall be moving further afield and talking about the case of surrounding the death of George Floyd. That has been seen as a landmark ruling. And, of course, it's very good that we have a lawyer here to take us into that and and explain to us why this is very important ruling. So let's take a short break. When we come back, we have more for you here on Morning Express.